guys, how you going? So today on BKR Sport, it is time to talk about the New Zealand Warriors, a team that had a fantastic 2023, and this video we're going to be kind of talking about my thoughts and my opinions on what 2024 does have to offer, because I know a lot of New Zealand Warriors fans are incredibly excited, and look, fair enough, absolutely they should be excited based off of their 2023 season. It was an unbelievable year to be a New Zealand Warriors fan. In 2000 and, let's go quickly have a look here, in 2022, they finished really low on the table. They finished really low. They finished in 15th position. And then in 2023, they came up and they finished in 3rd, which actually should remind you very, very drastically about a team called the North Queensland Cowboys, who in 2021 finished in 15th position. In 2022, finished in 3rd position, and then in 2023, they finished in 11th position. So, you know, there is kind of that recent history that does provide a little bit of a concern there for the Warriors. However, that doesn't mean that just because the Cowboys did it, that means the Warriors are going to do it by any means, right? I'm just kind of using that as a reference saying, hey, well, listen, this kind of did happen. You know, the Cowboys and Warriors both were in 15th, and then both of them got up to 3rd position. It's just the Cowboys have had that extra season where they've dropped off there. But look, I think the Warriors fans themselves are incredibly excited. They've got Roger Tuivasa-Sheck there. We'll quickly go have a look at their predicted list here. They've got Chance Clockstad in the fullback, who had a fantastic year. Watani Zelezniak and Marcelo Montoya on the wings, with Roger Tuivasa-Sheck predicted to be in the centres rather than the fullback, where he used to be for the New Zealand Warriors. And then Rocco Berry potentially in the other centre. Luke Metcalf and Shaun Johnson in the halves. We'll get into Shawnee J in a second, because obviously he is a massive part about if the Warriors can go again in 2024 and really build off of the success they found in 2023. The front row is Adam Fanor-Blake and Mitch Barnett, with 9 being Wade Egan. The back row is Marata Niokore and Kurt Catewell, which is a huge addition there. And then Tohu Harris is the lock. On the bench, the Dylan Walker, Jackson Ford, Bunty Afor, and Tom Ali. And this isn't a guarantee, guys. Obviously, this is just a predicted lineup there that I'm looking at. And look, it's decent. You know, overall, it is decent. But, you know, all throughout 2023, I did try to kind of warn Warriors about what was to probably come in the finals. And I don't think the Warriors fans necessarily care too much about the fact that they did get knocked out in the preliminary final last year to the Broncos. I don't believe that in the preseason they were believing they were going to be as successful as they achieved. So anything that, you know, was the top 8 was going to be something they really, really enjoyed, right? Because Shaun Johnson, a lot of people predicted him to actually retire. You know, I was one of the guys saying, I think this might be his last year. Obviously, he's getting on now. We had his Sharkies days that weren't the greatest, that we kind of had to go off. And yeah, it was a time where I know Clarkey said that he'd be finishing up in the New South Wales Cup, or I believe it was, right? So, you know, the predictions were awful all round. But with that being said, there was merit to saying that prior to the season that people forget about. Right, people love to shit on predictions and say that, oh, this was an awful prediction, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, at the time, pretty much everyone was in agreement of this, right? At the time, pretty much everybody thought, it's like the Cowboys again, to go back to them. Everybody thought after a year of 2021 where they came 15th, nobody thought they were going to come 3rd place. No one thought they were going to be even in the sniff for the 8. But they ended up coming in 3rd and I believe got to the preliminary finals. Well, yeah, lost to the Parramatta Eels, right? So the Warriors and Cowboys are really, really correlating right now. There is a lot of things there which Warriors fans don't want, because again, 2023 happened for the Cowboys, right? But, you know, last year, throughout the entirety of the year, I was incredibly happy for Warriors fans. Because as a Titans fan myself, I know the lack of success this club has had, and I know how it feels to have that lack of success and to still turn up each and every week watching a team that does struggle. So when 2023 came around, I was very, very happy for Warriors fans. However, I was saying throughout the season that I didn't see them win the grand final. I didn't think they had the defense when it comes to the grand final. I didn't think that they had the ability in the back end of the year to really go on with it. And, you know, I'm going to go through some results here, and I'm going to tell you kind of that was right. You know, when I was saying that, it was right. They actually started off the season a bit how you going. I don't think that the Warriors were looking like a deep threat early days, especially when they lost to the Roosters 2012 after that Dolphins lost to the Roosters. And, you know, they'd only beaten the Knights and the Cowboys, who at the time I guess we were kind of thinking was going to be a big team, but just obviously didn't happen, and then struggled to beat the Bulldogs. They won 16-14, right? The Sharks-Warriors game was huge because the Warriors were able to come back from a massive deficit at Cronulla to win 32-30, right? So that was huge. But, you know, the first part of the season was great and all, and I don't think that there's any real complaints about what happened for the New Zealand Warriors there. But throughout the beginning part of the season towards the halfway point, I kept saying to the fans, I just don't see them having that next step ability, right? I thought they were doing great, but I did kind of feel like it was that 1 year thing, like the Cowboys did have. And I did say that when it gets to the back end of the tournament, you're probably going to see that defense start to fall off. Right, and through the middle parts of the year, they were doing very, very well. You know, obviously beating the Eels 46-10, beating the Sharkies 44-12, the Dragons 48-18, the Raiders 36-14, the Dolphins 30-8. They were flogging teams. And they were giving a lot of hope to their audience. They were giving a lot of hope to the Warriors fans. But then you start to get towards the back end of the year, right? Post that Sharkies game, they beat the Raiders 21-20, gave up 20 points there. They beat the Titans 28-18. But the Titans were without a man for 65 minutes of that game with the controversial Moeaki Fotuaika send-off, right? And it was 18-18 with 7 minutes to go when they led 18-12 at halftime. So they weren't necessarily able to put that game away until the Titans were absolutely flabbergasted exhausted from that game with the last 7 minutes of the game. I was incredibly proud as a Titans fan, but it was a concerning performance for the Warriors. Regardless if you think I'm biased or not, I'm not saying that to insult Warriors. I was saying it's concerning because they weren't able to really smack this team. They should have been smacked. They should have been smacked with a man down for 65, 70 odd minutes, right? They then get out 22 points to the Tigers, 22 points to Manly. These are still in wins, but still you've got to look at that and say, we're giving up a lot of points against the Tigers and Manly of last year. That's a bit of a rough stretch. 186 over the Dragons. That was a good one there. Granted, they lost 34-10 to the Dolphins, but also had a lot of players out in that game. They rested the players because they knew they were going to be in the top 4. But then they get to the finals. And this is what I was saying. They hadn't actually beaten any type of real big team last year. They hadn't done it. Like, they had beaten nobody when it came to the big stretch of things. They lost to the Broncos, which was a baby Broncos at the time. They lost to the Panthers. They lost to the Storm. They lost to all these teams that were at the top end of the table. That was concerning. And then when they got to the finals, great, but it's also similar to the Sharkies. The Sharkies were able to beat everybody who was a bit of a no-hoper, but couldn't beat anybody of note. So the Warriors get in the finals. They lose 32-6 to the Panthers. Right, 32-6, big loss there. They beat the Knights 40-10, which was an impressive performance, but I guess we all kind of know the Knights were done after that huge performance against the Raiders the week before. And then obviously got knocked out 42-12 against the Broncos to get 42 points. So in the 3 finals games that they did have, 50, 60, 70, 74, 84 points they gave up to their opposition, which is just not good. It just isn't great. And I know Warriors fans are going to come and say the Broncos forward pass, the game was in the balance, and I agree with you, the game was in the balance, but that's not what happened, right? What happened was the forward pass happened, the Broncos went on with it. The Broncos probably win that game still, but obviously at that point, it was an arm wrestle for that first 20 minutes of the second half. That call gets made, and whoever gets the first try of the second half more than likely goes on to dominate. Well, not dominate, but I have the massive advantage going into that last 20 minutes, right? So I do feel sympathetic towards Warriors fans for that one. But overall, the defense wasn't as good as was being made out to be. And again, they were really trouncing on these opposition teams that were very lower opposition and then losing to the bigger opposition. So it's actually quite interesting and, confusing why the Sharks copped all that blame last year, but the Warriors didn't kind of cop anything of the same note. It's always the Sharks this, Sharks that, can't beat the big teams. But the Warriors couldn't actually beat the big teams. Another one, Storm. They didn't beat the Storm there. They beat the Sharkies, but with that being said, the Sharkies weren't great last year at all, right? So, it was something that I feel was glanced over quite significantly in 2023. And if you get results like that, you're going to make the 8. Look at the Sharks, Warriors and Sharks. Bang, bang. You beat the easier teams, you lose the bigger teams, you're still going to make the 8. But the unfortunate thing is that when you get to the finals, that's when you play the big teams. So at the end of the day, you're not going to actually go and do anything, right? You're going to lose in the finals. And that's exactly what the Warriors did. It's a concern. It is a concern because although it was such a great season for the Warriors, there is such a major concern about beating the bigger teams. And, the biggest concern of the lot is obviously Shaun Johnson is not getting any younger now. Let's quickly go have a look here at Shaun Johnson's age. Again, going into last year, everyone thought that he was going to be done. He wasn't. He's probably going to prove us wrong again this year. But the concern is valid that he's 33 years old. He's going on 34 years old this year, right? And apparently there's just been an injury scare in training with his ankle, right, that he's got to get scans on. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I don't know enough about that. We haven't got the reports back, but there is an injury scare. And I've been seeing that the Warriors fans say they have depth, which I relatively disagree with. I think that Shaun Johnson was the key guy that got them over the line last year. I do think that Shaun Johnson was very, very clearly their best player, and I don't think anybody can disagree with that. Obviously, he nearly won the Dally M, and people believe that he got robbed from the Dally M. But if Shaun Johnson doesn't have the same kind of year this year, what does that mean for the Warriors? Because he got them a lot of wins against those easier teams as well. He was the direction artist. He was the guy that really led this team to be able to push through those games and get those wins, and then compete in some of the bigger games as well. But overall, you're probably going to take a few losses on the board without Shaun Johnson, because where does your direction come from? What do you have? You've got Chanel Harris-Tavita and Tamari Martin, who, whilst they're decent enough and will, do the job, at the end of the day, they're not Shaun Johnson, and they're not the kind of guy that Shaun Johnson was in 2023. So with the concerns before about not being able to beat the bigger teams, and that was with Shaun Johnson, and honestly prime Shaun Johnson, not the same prime that he was when 2011, 2012 kind of days, but still a prime Shaun Johnson was last year, right? He was incredible. So if he doesn't have that same electric year for the club, and you do see him lose that even more pace, you do see him kind of the wear and tear come down on his body, which is kind of what you're seeing with this preseason potential injury scare. How does that translate to the Warriors getting more wins to be able to actually compete to win the competition? Because if Shaun Johnson continues to play and does play at that same level, I don't know if they can win the grand final, but I think they could get to the prelim again. I just think that, unfortunately, the pace of some other teams are really going to hurt them and haunt them when it comes to that big-time play in the final. I will say a positive, however. I don't want Warriors fans to think that I'm just coming down hard on their team, and I don't want them to... I don't want them to think that I'm hating on their team. I'm not. I'm just providing concerns going into 2024. But Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming back into the team is phenomenal. Obviously he was unbelievable when he was the fullback for the Warriors back in the day. However, he's not playing fullback. Charles Newell-Klokstad is, and Charles had a great season last year. Again, you need to rely on a lot of players in this team having that same kind of play, that same kind of level in 2024 as they did last year, which you can't guarantee. Ask the Cowboys. But Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming in does really provide a lot of experience, but I don't think the Warriors are lacking in experienced players. I think that they're just lacking in that clinical touch overall, right? And maybe it's their fault. I don't know, but there just seems to be that lack of that next step that actually goes to win the competition for the first time in New Zealand Warriors history. But Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming in does provide a lot. It's not the same play. For an All Blacks fan and a rugby union fan, you know that Tuivasa-Sheck is not the same guy that he was when he left the Warriors originally. Still a phenomenal player, though. So you look at that backline, and it is a quality backline. Chance, Dallin, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Rocco Berry, and Marcelo Montoya. Obviously, that 4 and 5 is a bit how you going, but overall, the 1, 2, and 3, really, really quality. And again, if Shaun Johnson has the same kind of year as last year, him and Luke Metcalf will do wonders. But it's just so hard to guarantee that they'll be able to pick themselves up and go again, right? When there's so many teams that have improved on last year as well. And that's how it is every single year. Every single year we say that new teams are going to evolve. Other teams will drop, and potentially it could be these guys. But Roger is a great addition to the team. And Kurt Capewell, another one of those guys, is really kind of a bare basic quality player. Like, he's a quality player, but at a bare basic level. You're not going to see any X factor there. He's going to do his defense. He's going to be a part of the attack, but he's not going to be any kind of X factor that really assists in the attacking of the play, in my opinion. But again, I did say that he's got some solid defense there. Kurt Capewell, obviously Origin representative, so should be able to help the Warriors to, hopefully rein in that defensive liability when it comes to the big team. Now, the last thing that I'm going to say here on the Warriors, who I don't think that they miss out. I don't think they make the top 4. I think they're probably in that 5 to... I think they're in the 5 to 10 range, but I would be more inclined to tip them at the lower end of the 8. I think that what is a pretty big thing that people aren't talking about at the moment is that the Warriors have the round 27 bye. And that's actually an issue. I don't find that is... The only way that is a positive is if you're in the 8 and your for and against is great as it is, and the bye just gives you an automatic win that prevents you from potentially losing and then dropping out, right? Which is something that could be a concern for the Warriors. But that round 27 bye, if you don't have the points differential, right? This happened with the Eels. If you don't have the points differential, the bye in round 27, the last game of the season, is actually quite awful. It's good if you're a top 4 team or a top 8 team and you're already in the finals because you've got that week rest, the guaranteed rest for everybody. But if you haven't guaranteed your spot yet, you need to have hopes that your points differential is phenomenal before that point, up until that point. Now, you play the Sharks at Cronulla in the round 26 game, which is a tough one because the Sharkies should be much better this year. They have to be, right? We spoke about them. They have to be. You surely beat the Bulldogs in Auckland in round 25. You got Manly, Dolphins. You've actually got a pretty good run home. So hopefully that run home outside of the Sharkies game can... Manly could be a lot better than last year with a healthy Trebojevic, Luke Brooks coming in, Cherry Evans and whatnot. They could be a lot better of a team. But overall, you would really like to put the sword to a few of these teams in the backstretch of this season. You've got... Oh, this is a great backstretch. After the Broncos game in round 17, you got the Bulldogs, the bye, the Raiders, the Tigers, the Eels, the Dolphins, Manly, the Bulldogs, and then the Sharks, which is good, right? So that's a pretty good run home besides the Sharkies game. So, yeah, you just need to really focus on that for and against and points differential being absolutely locked up and also guaranteeing your spot already by round 27 because you don't want one of those sneaky teams to come in, win like a Titans over the Warriors, actually. Like the Titans had to beat the Warriors by 44. No, we had to beat the Warriors by 11 points in 2021 to make the 8. We ended up winning by 44. But the Sharkies and I think it was the Raiders both lost games in the final round, which meant that if we won by 11, we would get in. So you don't want kind of situations like that happening. Right? So, yeah, overall, the Warriors, they've still got the potential to be a solid quality team in 2024. I don't think that they should have the expectations of being in a top 4 spot this year. I don't think so. If Shaun Johnson does what he did last year and defies the age, then you can probably aim towards a 4 to 5 kind of range. But again, there are still teams that should be above the Warriors. There are still teams that should be there. And I don't know what's missing. That's the issue. I don't know what's missing from this team to really turn them into a premiership winning caliber team. I don't know what it is. But I'd love to see your guys' thoughts in the comment section. Comment it below. If you disagree with me, fair enough, but explain why. Obviously, hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you are new around here. I appreciate you guys as always. Obviously, we're pumping daily videos at the moment. We've got a Brisbane Heat vlog coming out tomorrow, which will be good for you guys. Plus, we're doing the tier rankings, the draft still, and everything in between. So, yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Good luck to the Warriors in 2024. Our prediction video will come out 1 week before the season starts, which is just over a month away. But yeah, really excited for 2024, baby. So let's get it. Alright, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See you.